In this video, I'll show you how easily you can add modal content containers to really add some sexy look and feel to your ASP.NET application by using the accordion control that ships as part of the Microsoft Ajax Control Toolkit. So to get started, I'll fire up Visual Web Developer. You can follow along with VWD or with the full version of Visual Studio, whichever you prefer. I'll say create a website and choose the Ajax Control Toolkit website template. Go over into my default.aspx page. The first thing that I want to do is I want to include a CSS file. And so I'll grab that CSS file, drag it into my solution. You can see it's called stylesheet.css. And then in order to be able to reference the CSS classes that exist in that file, I need to create a reference to it in the header section of my page. Right, so I can do that. Now I can just go ahead and go down to my Ajax Toolkit tool tab and grab the accordion control. Now note that there are two accordion type controls here. One is an accordion, one is an accordion pane. We want to first grab the accordion control. We're going to use both here. And one thing to note about the accordion control is that it's a first-class control, so it's not a control extender like lots of the controls in the Ajax Control Toolkit. And control extenders are controls that extend ASP.NET controls. But this is a first-class control in and of itself. So you can see we have an instance of the accordion control. If I switch over to design mode here, you'll note that there's really no user interface, so it's actually much easier to work with the accordion control, at least as you're getting started in source code mode. So a couple of things that we need to do here. The first thing that I want to do is I want to specify that the selected index for our accordion when it originally loads will be index 0, and basically all that means is that in the accordion that we're defining, we want the first pane in that accordion to be the one that's open by default. So basically what we're going to be building here with this accordion control is, as I mentioned, a collection of modal content containers. So we can have these as many areas as we want, and each one of those areas will have its own HTML content, but only one is open at a time. So if we click on the header of a new pane to open it, the one that's open will automatically be closed, and the one that we clicked on will be open. So it's a really sort of slick way to let the users select what content that they want to see on the page. So next, let's add some style sheet information to pick up the look and feel that we want from the stylesheet.css file that we included. So we'll start with a class for our header section. It's header CSS class, and in our file it's just called accordion header. And then we also want to specify a class for the content section. So each pane has a header section and a content section. The header section is the section that stays visible, and you'll put a link in there that the user can click on to expand it. And the content section is the section that opens and closes based on the user's interactions. So the content CSS class, the one that we'll use from our style sheet CSS file, is accordion content. And next, we'll want to specify some of the behaviors for the opening and closing of these content panels. So let's set fade transitions equal to true, and let's specify the duration and the frames per second. So we'll specify frames per second, and we'll make it 40. And I think these are pretty self-explanatory in terms of the effect that they have. Let's also specify the transition duration, which is the amount of time it takes for the animation of the pane that's opening or closing. We'll set that to 250 milliseconds, and then we'll just set auto size equal to false, so that the static size declaration for the panes will be picked up. We're defining the size in our CSS. All right, so those are all the parameters we need for the accordion control itself. Now we can add accordion panes, and you add one of these for each modal container that you want to be contained inside your accordion control. So I'm going to add 1, 2. Before we do that, though, we need to add a panes section. All right. Now that I've added the panes section, now we can go ahead and add the accordion panes. So 1, 2, 3, and one more to make 4 for the purposes of our demo. Now inside each of these accordion panes, as I mentioned, there must be a header section and a content section. The header is the piece that stays visible, and the content section is the piece that opens and closes. So we'll add one header and one content section. And I'm going to duplicate this in each of the panes. But before I copy and paste, inside the header section, we're going to add an href, and this is simply going to give the user a link to click on that will open and close the pane. Right? So I'm just going to create an empty href with an on-click event. Return false. Remember the semicolon. And let's use a CSS class to define the look of the link. So we'll call that accordion link. Remember, these are all defined in our CSS file here. So you can see accordion content, accordion link. And then close that anchor tag and call it section 1. And now I'm just going to grab that the header section and the content section. Actually, I'm going to make a space in that content section first, just as a placeholder. And then I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to copy and paste that into each of the other 3 panes that we've defined here in our accordion panel. All right. Now, I want to go rename these. So we've got section 2, section 3, and section 4. Now, notice we don't have to wire the link. We don't have to wire this href up to anything. It's just the fact that we've got a clickable link in the header section. The control takes care of the rest for us. Now, in the content sections, the body of the content, this is just any HTML or JavaScript content that you want. So I've just got some snippets that I stole from my blog. I'm just going to cut and paste them in there. Again, these are just snippets that I included. There's nothing special about them. It's just content. Right? So you can see here just some paragraphs there, and this actually, you can look at the classes show that this was some content that was authored in Microsoft Word. Just some other paragraphs. Same thing with 3 and 4. So I'm just copy and pasting these. We'll look at it in the designer in a minute, but this is just text content. Has no real relevance other than as text placeholders for the user interface. So now you can see this is just the content that's stolen from my blog, and you can see we've picked up all of the cascading style sheet appearances from the CSS file that we included. But now if we run this, we can see what the behavior of this of the accordion control and the accordion panes are at runtime. So you can see that the index starting at 0, so we specified that the selected index would be 0, so by default the section 1 of the first defined section is open. If we click on section 2, notice section 1 closes and section 2 opens, and notice we've got that animation that we've specified by indicating the attributes of transition duration of 250 and frames per second of 40. Click on number 3 and number 4, and notice that in these content sections, again, this is just anything that you can do in HTML, JavaScript. So here's a picture of Bill Hilf, the GM for platform strategy here at Microsoft. Links, so it can be anything that you want, any HTML, JavaScript that you want. And that's it. It's that easy to improve your user interface by using these modal content containers, by implementing the accordion control that ships as part of the Microsoft AJAX Control Toolkit.